in the midst of a fierce battle. A shocking revelation unfolds: the one we thought was our ally was actually a traitor all along. The truth hits like a ton of bricks, and I can't believe my eyes. 29 frightening revelations. I spent the next few days teaching the warriors a few moves. I barely saw Gabriel, Glade, Sabrina, or Gomez. They all stayed locked in the office. When I did eventually see Gabriel, his face appeared stressed. His scrunched up features stared into my jade orbs momentarily but then darted elsewhere. I stepped closer to him, my eyes peering up. His intoxicating scent washed over me and made my nose flare. The more time we spent together, the stronger the bond became. It was driving me insane. It must be doing the same to him. An image of Gabriel choking flashed before my eyes and caused me to flinch. I was terrified. I wouldn't lie. Not of him. He couldn't hurt me even if he tried to, but for him. That dream felt so real. I'm convinced it was a vision. I was being shown the future. Someone wanted to kill Gabriel. I would not let that happen. I couldn't. Gabriel noticed my actions and probably sensed my fear because he cocked his head to the side. What's wrong? Evaluating the expression on my face, I pinched my lips together, feigning nonchalance. Nothing. I'm just tired. Excuses like that won't work on me. Liberty. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Reminding me that he's mine. He would always be able to know when I was lying. I could use glamour on myself to hide my feelings, but I'm sure he would know I wasn't being honest. I mentally scowled at the mate bond. I couldn't hide anything from him. I'm not ready to talk about it. Gabriel. I should tell him I don't even know what's stopping me. He could help, but I don't want him to be worried. He needs to be focused on planning the fight against the Delta Moon. Plus, I'm not even sure if it was a dream or something more. He might not even believe me. Gabriel scrutinized my expression but eventually conceded, giving me the privacy I desired. I felt guilty about lying to him, but I still stood by my thoughts. I thought you would start to open up to me since your secret was revealed, he commented, inching closer to me again. He wanted to touch me. That was painfully obvious. I wanted him to touch me too, but I didn't trust either of us. Our bodies were under the spell of the mate bond. We had no control over what we would do. Thus, I had to be careful. If I let him touch me, I would tell him what I saw in my dream vision. I lifted my hands up and placed them on his broad shoulders. He stiffened slightly and gazed into my jade orbs. I will. Someday. Trust isn't easy. He exhaled and stepped back, putting distance between us. I glared at the small space between us, no longer feeling the sparks. Gabriel looked into my eyes and then walked away to Glade. Sniffling, I moved towards my brothers. Jacob was teaching to younger wolves a tactful move. They seemed to pick it up easily, much to Jacob's joy. As for Declan, he was standing at the edge of the field, his arms crossed over his chest, watching over the field. I moved towards him, realizing I hadn't spoken to him in a long time. Recently, I spoke to Declan when it came to matters of training. We didn't speak that much back home, but we had an understanding. We could both sit in silence and know exactly how the other was feeling. He glanced at me with his green eyes, one similar to our parent, and then turned back to face the warriors. He never really spoke. He was like Gabriel in that sense. Gabriel was more of a thinker than a speaker. Can I ask you something, brother? Shifting my gaze to the field as well. Everyone was too busy to listen to us. I was met with silence. However, I knew that was a sign for me to continue. Can vivid dreams or visions turn out to be real? I stammered, my voice gradually getting quieter. Declan wagged his orbs to me slowly. The glint in his eyes was alarming. Why are you asking me this? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Libby, what did you see? He tried a different approach, averting my eyes away. I didn't want to tell him I was afraid to. Nothing. I imagine. I'm just freaked out about Delta Moon. That's all. The words rushed out of me. I think the werewolf book I'm reading is getting to me. Declan's eyes narrowed. What werewolf book? Oh, I forgot to tell them about the book Gabriel made me read. My mind has been so busy that I completely forgot about it. I was meant to tell you. I started off casually. Gabriel gave me this book to translate. It talks about the origins of werewolf, our grandfather, and more. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Can you show me this book? I knew he would want to see it. I couldn't really stop him. He'd probably be able to make more sense of it than me. If anyone could help me with the book, it's Declan. I nodded my head. I'll show you after training. 3 hours later, and I was stalking up to the pack house with my brothers. Gabriel avoided me the entire time but would occasionally throw me glances. For the most part, I pretended I didn't notice. Declan and I managed to split from Jacob easily. We simply had to say we were going to watch some television and it instantly made him run away. He was a traditional person when it came to technology, so now, Declan was in my room, flicking through the old, tattered book. There was a crease between his eyebrows, marring his smooth skin. Every once in a while, a small noise would come from him, reminding me he was still here. I lowered myself onto my desk seat and stared out the window, recalling what I knew about the book. There were 2 people who were gifted by the moon goddess herself, but they were captured by my great-grandfather who sensed something was off about them. For many years, they were locked up and tortured because of who they were. My grandfather, who snuck in to see them and recorded all the information he could, helped them escape. The couple built a life in the human realm, hiding from mortals. They discovered what would happen if they bit someone, and soon, they created their own species. They became werewolves. And then, something happened. This is very interesting, but I don't understand why you're making me read this. Don't we have more pressing matters? Declan voiced his thoughts a few minutes later, tugging at the bottom of my hair. This is going to sound stupid, but I feel like this story is connected to us somehow. Declan arched an eyebrow. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's linked to us. Libby, our great-grandfather tortured the very first werewolves. I had to admit, I was getting slightly frustrated with him. He wasn't listening to me. No, that's not what I'm saying. I feel it's linked to us, me and Gabriel specifically. I clarified, firmly. The look of confusion on his face was almost too much to handle. Either he was listening to me or... Do you know something I don't? Declan. My voice came out quickly and rather harshly. Normally, I'd immediately apologize to my quiet brother, but these were pressing matters. I was worried about Gabriel and his pack. Declan scratched the back of his neck, flickering his jade orbs away from me. I'm not sure. Libby, he eventually replied, timidly, narrowing my eyes at his face. I crossed my arms over my chest and quirked an unimpressed eyebrow. Explain what you know. Now, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Declan placed the book on my table and lowered himself onto my couch, spreading his long legs out. He reluctantly met my unwavering gaze. Well, a few decades ago, I got really bored and started searching the library. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I found a book similar that was written in the same format like this but in Greek, not Latin. Distantly, I could picture my older brother ransacking the ginormous library owned by our family. He always spent time there. There was a time our parents worried about him. They feared he would spend the rest of his extremely long life hidden away in the library. Naturally, I was curious because I had never seen this book before. It seemed hidden away, albeit the person who hid it failed. But it was set on a high shelf, never attracting the attention of anyone. I leaned in closer, mesmerized by my brother's story. He was always good at recalling things with exact detail. So I plucked it from the shelf and stuffed it in my royal jacket. Nobody seemed to notice as I snuck back to my room, making himself more comfortable. And well, when I read the contents, I was struck. It was an account of the first werewolves, spoken from their own eyes, and eager to hear what else he had to say. There was more, I was certain. Declan exhaled loudly, but compared to your book, which finishes abruptly, that one continued. I gasped, my eyes wide. What did it say? Declan chewed on his bottom lip, pondering over how to word it. It recounted how the two original werewolves were betrayed and murdered. He revealed, pausing, my eyes were as wide as saucers. I was astonished he had stumbled upon this and hadn't told me sooner. Why did he hide it from me? Why wasn't I allowed to know about it? My mind felt jumbled. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He muttered the next few words, his voice distant and sad. Euthiasm. It said that the two werewolves were murdered by their close friend. There was more. I could sense it. Our grandfather knew about it, and did nothing. It was hard to hear those words come out of my older brother's mouth. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to believe my family are not cruel. We were like we are the good guys. Yet Declan is correct. Then everything I believed about my family is false. My father, who must have known something about this, lied straight to my face. The council must have known something too. And they did nothing. What about the Ward family who were werewolf royalty? Did they know the truth? Did the plan to cover up? It was all sadistic. All rose in my throat and I fought to keep it down. How would Gabriel feel about this knowledge? Would he be disgusted? Declan's grim face said it all. He knew the consequences of our family's actions. If the truth about our species and this came out, we would be done for. There would be no hope of peace. We let werewolf royalty die. We had the power to help them, but we chose to do nothing. I'm sorry. Enthusiasm, Libby. I honestly didn't want to tell you this. My brother apologized, his tone sympathetic. He had already processed this information whilst I hadn't. And now I had to face a pack of werewolves, including my mate, and keep this secret. It was a cruel thing to ask of me. Gabriel would know I was hiding something. He is a man of few words. He silently read people. He learned their tics and flaws. He already knew mine. I was certain of that. In addition, we were mates and we had a bond. The bond would waver if I blatantly lied to his face. Is there any more? Declan, I choked out, placing a hand over my racing heart. Declan pinched his lips together and shifted to the window. There is, isn't there? Matter-of-factly, I dreaded to think about what was to come. Declan glanced over his broad shoulder, taking his time to answer. Yes. What is it? Prince Say's eel is working for the Delta Moon Pack, so do rain on my parade. The time had come for me to make a formal declaration to my pack. I had to explain to them who Liberty was to me and what her species was. I had to force my pack to sign an oath that they would not disclose this secret to anybody else. It had been a while since I had spoken to Liberty. She was so busy with her brothers. I barely got to see her. I had to admit, was this the hurt she felt when I pushed her away and acted coldly? Then, God forbid, I would never do that to her again. It felt like torture being away from her. She knew how to drag you into her orbit. Her piercing and jaw-dropping jade eyes could suck in every emotion I had and make my body feel light and fuzzy. I had never been a man to say much, but I wanted to tell her so many things. I wanted to be different for her. Even though I had only known her for a short time, I wanted to be a good person. I wanted to be better. Growing up, I had it drilled into me that my mate was my number one priority. It was always Red Night. Red Night. Red Night. My duty was to my pack. They were my life. And when she came along, it all changed. My pack was convinced I'd never take a Luna. They hoped it would be Eden, but that hope dwindled when she left. I could never take Eden as my Luna. So announcing Liberty as my mate would definitely shake their foundations. They would be happy, I knew they would. But would they be thrilled at her species? She had told me that she wanted to tell my pack that they deserved to know the truth if they were going to fight. When Liberty strolled up to me, with her head held high, I felt my wolf ease. He had been running circles in my brain for the past few days, demanding to see Liberty. Now that she was here, he was content. It was funny what a mate could do to you. My wolf had always been a vicious creature, but with her by his side, he would happily settle under bay. I turned to my otherworldly mate. Her luscious, almost white locks trailed down her back in waves. She wasn't wearing any make-up, not that she needed to. She was easily the most gorgeous specimen to exist. Discreetly, I breathed in her intoxicating scent. How did she manage to smell so divine? Did she know how wonderful she smelt? Sensing my burning and heated gaze on her face, she flickered her alluring orbs to me. I was transfixed by her. I nearly had to knock myself for sounding like a love-sick puppy. I used to question Gomez on how he could become such a different person around Sabrina. But now I understood. You weren't even conscious of the change. It happened so naturally and swiftly. Gabriel. Her soft and heavenly voice called my name like a lullaby. It was so soothing and electrifying. Yes, she paused and bit her bottom lip. I glanced down at her plump pink lips, wanting nothing more than to smack my own lips against them and show her how I felt about her. She honestly had no idea how much she was driving me crazy. Do we really have to announce who I am now? I didn't act offended because I could understand her doubts. She had spent her entire life guarding her secret, and now she was revealing it to my pack. She was being so brave I couldn't help but admire her. The moon goddess had gifted me with the perfect mate. She must have sensed I would be hesitant, so she paired me with Liberty. Crafty. Yes, I answered. My tone clipped. She didn't take any offense to my blunt and rather harsh tone. I'm sure she knew I meant nothing by it. Liberty sighed and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her face seemed to shine under the fluorescent light. I had never seen anybody shine like her before. Liberty, I know this goes against everything you've been taught. Grabbing onto her hands, blissful sparks erupted on my skin. I think we're way past being able to keep this a secret. My pack is suspecting things. We can't lie to them anymore. She sucked in a breath and licked her lips. Desire coursed through me, and it took all of my willpower to not act on it. This was definitely not the right time or place. I understand. She nodded her head. Solemnly. She didn't want to do this, but she had to. The truth was better coming from her lips. Hesitantly, I let go of her hands and stepped back. Come on. They should be ready now. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They're all here. Blade informed me through the mind link. He was probably standing by the door, waiting for our arrival. I led Liberty through the house towards the meeting hall. We only used said hall for big meetings like this. Most of the time, the pups used it for activities in the daytime. The room came to a hush as we entered. All eyes were centered on us. I spotted Gomez and Sabrina first. They were both sitting at the front of the room, their eyes full of courage. Sabrina winked at my mate, hoping to pass on strength. She was a good friend to my mate. I appreciated her kindness when Liberty needed her. Next, I noticed Eden. She was located at the back of the room. A cold, unforgiving eyes on the pair of us. I knew she would be feeling tremendous waves of hate, as much as I hated to admit it. Eden loved me. In her own way, she wanted to take care of me and the pack. Her family had raised her to expect the Luna title. For me to deny her time and time again and accept my mate must have been painful. I didn't really see her anymore. She avoided me like the plague. Lastly, I saw Carrie, Liberty's helper. She hadn't fed me any information about Liberty, probably because there was nothing vital to tell me. She was also distant from my pack members and me. Some labeled her a freak, which I did not condone. I made it to the center of the stage, with Liberty hovering to my left, and cleared my throat. My entire pack faced me with confused but respectful gazes. I would die for my pack in a heartbeat. They were the only family I had left. I apologize for gathering you all here away from your duties, but as many of you must be aware, things in Red Night are changing. I began confidently. Firstly, many of you have wondered why I allowed Liberty to stay in my pack. For certain reasons. I kept the truth a secret, but now is time to reveal it. Liberty is my mate, your Luna. Gasps sounded throughout the hall. I heard a flurry of whispers of shock from several members. They all stared at my mate, inspecting her like a bug under a microscope. She was used to the attention of so many, having been born into royalty, and so she didn't react. Her head was held high and her face was expressionless. No matter what they said about her, she would not let it affect her. My admiration for her grew. Secondly, I need to inform you of who Liberty is. I paused and inhaled. Beside me, Liberty stiffened, but remained composed. I could practically imagine what was going on inside of her head. Enthusiasm. Liberty is not from this world. She has come from another realm. The reason she fled is not important, but I must tell you she is not a threat. What is she then? A voice shouted from the crowd. I couldn't pinpoint who asked the question, nor did I care. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Liberty stepped forward, taking over. She would be better at explaining this than me. What? Pack members queried, turning to each other. Puzzled. I am a light five from a different realm. My parents were the former king and queen until my brother took over. You have already met two of my other brothers, Jacob and Declan. We have kept our existence hidden for centuries due to the dangers posed to us. I apologize for lying to you and keeping this a secret. She loosened a shaky breath and curled her hands behind her back. I shifted closer to her, letting her know I was here. Why should we believe you? A strong and slightly angry voice yelled. I clenched my jaw at the disrespect. Just as I was about to discipline this person for speaking in such a voice, Liberty beat me to it. Look, I understand you don't trust me. I showed up in an abrupt manner and lied to your alpha and your faces. You know nothing about my species or my abilities. I am a mystery to you. She paused, breathing heavily now. But what I can tell you is that I'm your Luna, and it is my duty to protect you. I mean you no harm, she uttered with a voice of promise and caring. Everything about her made you want to trust her. The majority of my pack relaxed slightly. They didn't trust her yet. I expected nothing less. Trust was earned by actions, not words. She had to prove herself to them, but she was more than willing to do this, and that meant something to them. Liberty already understood my pack so well. She showed the true qualities of a Luna. Now I am more than willing to answer any questions you have, she added, smiling gently. Multiple questions were fired at her immediately, causing her to chuckle. I met her eyes and managed a crooked smile. This was going to take a while. The meeting lasted longer than I would have liked, but I was glad it was done and it went well. The pack seemed to ease up the more Liberty answered their questions. They appreciated her openness. We hung back to answer more questions from pack members. I loitered to the side, giving her some privacy. She talked to all of my pack members with politeness. Everyone seemed enamored by her once they started talking to her. Now that they knew the truth, they opened up more. I didn't even realize a smile was planted on my face until Liberty shot a look my way. However, my good mood soon disappeared when a certain somebody stalked over to me, ready to rain on my parade. Eden had a stern expression on her face. Her dark orbs was owned in on me only. Gab Alpha, can I talk to you in private? She managed to spit her words out, forcing formalities. I didn't want to leave and it was evident on my face, but Eden refused to take no for an answer. It's important. I won't take up too much of your time. Begrudgingly, I nodded my head. She glided in front of me, sashaying her hips extravagantly. My eyes dug into the back of her head, not looking anywhere else. Eden took me to the small room next door, which was used as changing rooms for pack members. Not many people used it, so it was mostly empty. I left the door ajar and faced Eden, my old friend, with a cold look. She didn't flinch, but hurt flashed in her brown eyes. What do you want? I got straight to the point, wanting to leave here as quickly as possible. What on earth did she want to tell me? Eden swallowed, gathering her words slowly. I think it's about time we talk about what happened between us. She didn't want to beat about the bush either. Nothing happened between us. I've told you plenty of times that nothing ever would. I replied, my words honest and brutal. It had to be this way though. It was the only way I'd be able to get through to her. I was fed up with her constant tantrums. She was not the girl I used to know. Before she left, she was happy, soft-spoken, and polite. This girl before me was different. I barely recognized her. Eden's eyes welled up. She shook her head vigorously, refusing to listen to me. That's not true, she whispered, her voice cracking. At that moment, I felt pity for my friend. She was lost. She thought she loved me. But if she did, she'd be happy for me. She'd want me to be with my mate. Eden, you have to stop acting out. You were never going to be my Luna. You knew this. Please let this notion go. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Softly, you don't care about me, she muttered as a tear trailed down her flushed cheek. She was a beautiful, broken nest right now. I meant nothing to you. That's not true. She snapped her teary gaze to me, hope blazing with hope for a brief moment. I don't believe you. Gabriel, prove it to me. I was confused about what she was asking me. The rest of the word never left my mouth because her lips were on mine. A gasp from behind me sounded instantly. I ripped myself away from her in a flash, disgusted and shocked. The kiss lasted a second, but the damage was already done. Eden had kissed me and my mate had seen it. Spinning around on the balls of my heels, I saw Ibiti's green orbs on me. They were full of many emotions. Betrayal. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And most of all, the betrayal and hurt on her face were enough to make me want to tear Eden's throat out. I never got to finish the sentence because she vanished into thin air, using her magic. The pang in my heart was indescribable. I had been trying to get her to forgive me for my mistakes, yet this would not help my case in the slightest. I could lose her, and it was all because of Eden. I turned back to Eden. She was shrinking under my rage. A few allies. I had never been so angry in my life. What have you done? Hatred leaking into my voice. Eden opened and closed her mouth like a clueless fish. Regret was visible on her face, but that was not to make up for what happened. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I left, find her and explain everything. She stuttered, pathetically, as if she could help the situation right now. I internally scoffed at the thought. You've done enough. I snarled. Coldly, get out of my sight before I punish you. She scurried away without a second thought. Alone, with my racing and terrifying thoughts, I pinched the bridge of my nose and sighed. I had to find Liberty immediately and explain everything. She had to know it was a mistake. I couldn't lose her. Not when I just got her. 31. Don't look back in anger. My feet landed on the soft grass and I wobbled, momentarily disoriented. I had managed to teleport somehow. It was not like a usual teleport where I had to conjure up a portal. I simply thought of a place I wanted to go to and I appeared. All I knew was that I had to get away for a moment and breathe. What I saw would be stuck in my brain for a long time. I had walked past the room, searching for Gabriel, when I suddenly witnessed the kiss. It was tremendously painful to watch. The small gasp that had escaped my lips let had revealed my appearance. His guilt-stricken face would also be etched in my mind forever. I had never seen a man more regretful in his entire life. Getting away for a moment was what I needed. I needed to get some air and think things over. The only place I could think of that was far away was the small patch of grass I had fallen onto. It was the first place I saw when I arrived and held some sort of familiarity and safety for me. I could recall the agonizing pain I felt when I had crash-landed. The drop was long. To this day, I still didn't know why I was teleported to Earth. It was as if the gods themselves knew I needed to get away, and so they entranced me to the lake. Perhaps that was the truth. At this point, I'd believe anything. Kneeling onto the grass, I touched the dirt and fluttered, my eyes closed. I could hear the forest around me with my hands digging into the soil. It whistled and breathed fluently. There weren't any human emotions. No, nature felt differently. Their world was so much simpler. Without mates, betrayal, or loss, all they had was solidarity. For a moment, I wished my life was as easy as that. I wished I could rid myself of human emotions and mates and simply exist. There was so much going on in my life. However, my family's face, even Gabriel's face, popped into my mind. Without them and the other people I met, what would my life be like? I had faced so many challenges in life, but I also had many good times. I had my brothers who teased me to no end in my childhood, but they also protected me from the dangers of the world. My parents, who guided me through all walks of life, teaching me how to be a good and honorable person, who showed me what love was like for the first time. The members of Red Knight, specifically Sabrina, who was kind to me in a way nobody had ever been. She was accepting despite my lies and flaws. And hell, even Gabriel, who despite his fears and what was drilled into his head, still chose to give me a chance. He still chose to attempt a relationship. All of these people had helped me in ways they couldn't even fathom. They made me the person I was today. All of them had been in my life for different amounts of time, but they all hit me in different ways. I had to be grateful for the life I had thus far. I was luckier than most. As if sensing my dilemma, my surroundings hummed a soft tune. The wind picked up into a soft breeze, making strands of my light hair float around me. I was in awe of its compassion toward me. Content and calmer, I let go of the dirt and closed my eyes. Peace seeped into my bones, allowing me some rest. My thoughts came to a standstill, and I was alone and one with myself. Everything had been hectic for a while. I had forgotten my own needs. I couldn't tell you how long I spent kneeling on the ground with my eyes squeezed shut. It was when my name was desperately called that I knocked myself back into reality. Snapping my eyes open, I tuned into my surroundings, catching on to their hesitant footfalls. The person who called my name was Jacob, my favorite brother. He sauntered over to me with a concerned expression planted on his face. I'm sure he knew why I had run away. He was always good at finding out these things. Jacob sat next to me, folding his legs. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We both rejoiced in Mother Nature's garden. Eventually, he was the first one to speak. I heard what happened. I sucked in a breath, keeping my eyes pinned ahead of me. His green orbs flickered to the side of my face, reading every emotion that flashed in my eyes. I'm sure everybody heard about it. I muttered, distastefully. Not even an hour had passed since I was announced the Luna, and my mate had been caught kissing the girl everyone wanted to be the Luna. Any respect I had gained was surely gone. Jacob sighed sadly. Nobody besides me, Declan, and the bait know about it. We're not going to let it get out. It was a relief to hear that at least. It was a mistake, he uttered in a steady, believable voice. I already know what happened. I watched Tidance spring on him like a starving wolf. She had known I was coming. She must have heard me approaching. Why did she do it? To prove a point. To create a wedge between Gabriel and me. I wanted to loathe Eden's existence so much. She just had to constantly get in the way and ruin things. I thought what had occurred on the training grounds would be enough to stop her relentless quest. It wasn't. I showed her I didn't want to fight anymore. She could have crushed my dainty throat and I wouldn't have done a thing. But she didn't. Foolish. I should have seen this wasn't over yet. I know it was. I watched it happen. I was just so angry and hurt. So many thoughts were racing in my head. I explained, articulating my thoughts the best way I could. I know it wasn't Gabriel's fault. He's made it abundantly clear he wants nothing to do with Eden. It was my anger that made me run away. Jacob listened to me intently. I didn't take you for someone who would run away. He snorted and immediately apologized when I sent him the stink eye. But I think you made the right move there. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Your alpha mate is slowly losing his mind looking for you. Gabriel must have been scouting the entire pack. If Jacob managed to find me this quickly, it meant Gabriel would be close behind. How mad is he? I asked my beloved brother, picturing Gabriel's angry face. No doubt he'd be angry I ran when he wanted to talk and explain things to me. Little did he know he didn't need to do that. Not mad, just worried, Jacob answered, surprising me. My mouth gaped open in shock, doubting my brother's answer. Are you sure? Yes, Jacob nodded his head. From what I saw, he's terrified you'll leave him because of this. Gabriel never really spoke about his feelings for me. I had to base what I knew on his actions and facial expressions. He was a man of little words, which made it difficult to know where he stood with me. This is a big mess. We don't need this now, I complained, angry that Eden decided to spring this on us now. If it's any consolation, I think he'd unrealized her mistake. I saw her flee the room after Gabriel stormed out, and her face was a picture of regret. He informed me, almost sounding sympathetic to Eden. Are you pitying her? Annoyance rising in my voice. Jacob switched his eyes to me. I saw an emotion I barely saw in his eyes. Upset. Why was he upset about this? Jacob, pestering him to answer my question. Tell me. Tell you what? He countered, acting indifferent. What you're hiding, I said in a firm tone. He loosened a tense breath and dragged a hand through his light blonde hair. I didn't realize it at first, but as soon as I kissed her, I knew. My eyes widened, knowing exactly where he was going with this. Eden's your... I yelled, almost hysterically. I did not see that coming. She hushed me, eyeing the area around us for anyone. I couldn't believe my ears. How could Eden be mated to my brother? In what universe was that fair? No wonder Jacob was torn. His soulmate was in love with my mate and kissed him. I was shocked he was swimming in jealousy. Then again, Jacob was never like that. He had lovers in the past, and he always gave them the respect and space they wanted. He was being very rational about this. She must know. Jacob, she must know that you're mates, and yet she still... I trailed off, my brain not wanting to comprehend it. How cruel. That's the thing. Libby. Jacob started, his tone deflated. I don't think she knows I'm her mate. I think she has a werewolf mate out there. A gasp passed through my lips, and for the second time today, I was stunned. What? How is that possible? Well, the kiss was accidental. She had too much to drink a few nights ago and started blabbering about how she hated you. I don't think she realized who I was. As I helped her back to her room, she sprung on me. I instantly knew, and I'm sure she felt some sort of pull, because when we pulled away, she was dazed and in. But like I said, she was very drunk. I think she forgot it happened. He told me in anguish. Oh, Jacob, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me? He forced a small smile on his face, blinking away his tears. Because we have bigger problems right now. My drama can wait until Azir is sorted. My dear wise, favorite brother was suffering so much, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. At least he didn't have to bear this secret alone anymore. Eden had given me another reason to hate her. What are you going to do? Brother, are you going to tell her? Or are you going to let her find her werewolf mate? I fired questions at him. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Libby, she seems to be shattering into a million pieces. I'm afraid if I spring this on her, she will crumble. He voiced his fears to me, completely lost. When this is all done, I will help you, brother. Grabbing onto his hand and squeezing it. Jacob was kind and good. He didn't deserve to go through horrible trials like I did in order to be with his mate. No matter how much I despised Eden at this particular moment, I wanted my brother to be happy, even if that meant getting shoes done and accepting her. The Tito New Beginnings. Gabriel found me shortly after Jacob left. I sensed his desperate presence immediately. Stiffening, I inhaled before climbing to my feet and turning around to face him. He must have shifted from his large wolf form into his human body, because he was without a shirt. His impressive body was on full display and it made mine go wild. With great effort, I tore my eyes away from his chest to his handsome face. There were so many emotions swirling in his grey orbs. When he opened his mouth to speak, struggling to find the right words, he didn't know I had already forgiven him. He didn't know I had seen everything and knew it wasn't his fault. According to Jacob, Gabriel was terrified of losing me. A part of me wanted to believe this so badly. He was my mate and I was his surely. He wanted me as I wanted him, but he found it difficult to express his feelings. I couldn't blame him, but it made things in our lives more complicated. I stepped forward, my hard expression melting. Gabriel furrowed his bushy eyebrows together, cautious about what I was doing. Still, I continued moving closer to him until I was mere inches from him. His intoxicating scent filled my nose and calmed my racing heart. Peering into his grey orbs, I momentarily lost the main thought I had circulating in my head. Gabriel opened his mouth, then spoke in an unsteady voice. Libby, I interrupted him before he could finish. I saw what happened. She sprung on you. You didn't want it. I'm not angry at you. Relief flashed in his orbs. He released a long breath, flickering his eyes up to the sky as if to thank the gods above. Liberty, I don't think I have ever felt as much fear like this. He mumbled, locking eyes with me again. I listened to what she had to say and then she just jumped me. Hesitantly, I placed my hand on his warm cheek. The sparks that erupted on my skin were enough to ignite my entire body. Gabriel. I ran away because I was angry at her and the whole situation. I knew I needed to collect my thoughts before I approached you. But as I pondered over it, I realized how out of sync we are. I'm constantly battling my thoughts, wondering where we stand. I know you want me, but you never really voice your thoughts. How am I meant to know? This time, he cut me off with a passionate and demanding kiss. My knees wobbled at the sheer intensity of it. My arms encircled around his broad, thick neck as his own hands roamed down my lower back, reaching my bottom. In one swift move, he hoisted me in the air. I wrapped my legs around his waist whilst I opened my mouth, letting his tongue explore my mouth. This kiss was different from the others. We were both hungry for each other, starved in fact. I wanted his security and he didn't want to let me go. We were a beautiful mess. He lightly sucked on my bottom lip, eliciting a moan of pleasure from me. Over my 80 years alive, I had been with my fair share of guys and girls, but he topped all of them. He was an expert at knowing exactly where to make me feel immense of pleasure. My hand drifted upwards from his neck to his hair. I tugged on a few strands of his dark hair, making him groan. We were both acting like two horny teenagers in heat. It was almost comical how quickly we lost self-control, especially Gabriel, who was the definition of self-control. To my disappointment, we eventually pulled away. Panting, I dropped my legs to the ground and wiped my mouth. I'm sure my lips were swollen from the blowing make out we just had. Gabriel's hair was disheveled and his eyes were dazed. Anyone who walked into the clearing would immediately know we had a heated encounter. I'm not good with words, Liberty, but I can show you how much you mean to me, he declared. Honestly, he had shown me what he felt. I felt the desperation, want, a need for me. We both wanted each other. I think since we denied each other for so long since we accepted the bond, our desire for each other increased. I fixed my hair and smiled at his look of wonder. I always dreamed of the day it'd be with my. I wondered what it would be like, who they would be, and if they'd value me. I revealed, the words pouring out of me so easily. The more time we spent together, the closer we got, and the easier it was to talk to him. And whilst our initial relationship was not what I expected or hoped, I'm glad we're communicating. His lips seemed to twitch upwards. I then realized I had never seen him smile before. I'm sure my imagination of it wouldn't do it justice. I promise I'm going to make you believe I want you. But he stopped himself, retreating in on himself again. I knew what he was about to say and I felt an ounce of disappointment that he stopped himself. He's not ready yet? I had to remind myself, learning from my past mistakes. I wouldn't push him. Okay, I managed to choke out. Gabriel then shot his eyes to the sky, making me do the same out of curiosity. The sky was now starting to turn dark. Colors of orange, yellow, and even purple filtered into the sky. It was a beautiful sight to see. I don't think I've ever truly appreciated the scenery in the human realm. It wasn't as majestic or ethereal as what I see back home, but there was a particular beauty to its faults. I felt Gabriel's scorching gaze on the side of my face, watching my reactions. He was obviously used to sights like this whilst I always saw starry nights and golden sunsets. He then surprised me by sharing a fond memory with me. I used to sneak out of here when I was younger. When learning how to be a leader became too much, I'd leave just before the sun would set and sit here for hours and stare at it. This was the one place I'd feel calm. The fact he was opening up to me made me happy and important. This was what I wanted. I must admit I was shocked to find you here. Nobody really comes to this place. It's just another patch of land to my pack. Clearing his throat. This was where I landed. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilban. Hearts thou thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Wistfully, when I had escaped his eel's clutches, I was frightened and lonely. I wondered whether I'd be able to make it out alive. And now here I was, back where it all started. Funnily, I don't think I'd change a single thing about this. What a coincidence, he murmured, thoughtfully. Gabriel and I walked back to the pack house. Side by side, our hands would brush against each other until eventually, we entangled them together. A sigh of contentment passed through my lips. When we arrived, I didn't know whether I should part ways with him. Our rooms were on the same floor, close together, but I didn't want to go back to mine. My eyes glanced at the grandfather clock in the entrance and noted it was already getting quite late. Tea would be ready soon. I don't want to let go, I admitted, sheepishly. His lips quirked upwards again, close to a smile. One day, he would actually smile in front of me. Good, he replied simply. Gabriel led me to his study where he sat behind his desk. Begrudgingly, I let go of his hand and instead picked up a book on fighting to read. I used to love reading, I did it all of the time. But recently, I've had no time. Obviously, I've read the Werewolf book, but it was mandatory. Gabriel started working on his pack business, whilst I plonked down on the beige couch and opened up the book. He had put on a shirt, to my disapproval. I got roughly 40 pages into the book before the bell for tea was called. Placing a placeholder to mark my page, I rose to my feet and walked down to the dining hall with Gabriel. I couldn't seem to walk away from him. We sat at the big table, in our usual seats. I chewed on my roast beef, which had been made in celebration of my announcement. I could feel werewolves glancing at me warily. Most of them had come to accept who I was, only a few of them were displeased. I hoped I could sway them. Declan, what did you do in your realm? Blade asked my brother, seeming to become more interested in my family. He had adopted a friendly attitude in the past few days. It was almost like I was speaking to a different person. My brother froze and swallowed his food audibly. I work in the finance department. I'm the king's right-hand man. Jacob chipped in, his mood lightening. After telling me the truth, I promised to keep an eye on him. Blade's face showed how impressed he was. What's it like in your world? He could have asked me this. Why didn't he? Entrancing, he described with one word. It was hard to describe in words how gorgeous our world was. You had to see it with your own eyes. Blade seemed to want to ask more, but Sabrina took over. How many people are in your kingdom? Her brown eyes were filled with interest and excitement. I hadn't had a proper conversation with her about my species. It was on my agenda. I just never got around to it. Thousands. Our lands are different from here. Fae aren't the only creatures that live in our world. We have fairies, nymphs, and elves who reside on our lands too. I answered for her. More than happy to talk about this. I liked the fact she was interested in my world. What's the difference between light and dark Fae? She continued to pry. Curiously, Sabrina was such a curious werewolf, it was a trait I loved about her. I shared a look with my brothers, silently communicating with them. The best person to answer her question was Declan. He knew the most about them since he has read so many books. Well, we're light fi. Our powers come from lightness. We are inherently good, but we can dip into the darkness. If we do that, our souls become black and evil. Dark fi are not born but are created by their parents. He stated it in a calm, thoughtful voice. Dark fi's powers come from badness. We used to say they came from hell. Dark fi can manipulate nature, and if they are stronger and more controlled, they can slip into people's minds. It's practically unheard of nowadays, though. I could recall briefly hearing this. It must have come up in passing conversation. Our world is divided into two sections with a border in between. We rule the light fi along with the fairies and nymphs. King Waldorf and Queen Serena rule the dark fi. Soon, the crown will pass on to Prince. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Declan said his name slowly and cautiously. I fitted my eyes to Gabriel, who clenched his jaw at his name. Us posing so many broken problems, and he was here. In this world. Prince Aziel. Sabrina said his name. Distastefully. I hadn't told her about him, but I assumed she heard from Gabriel. What is he like? Horrible. My answer was instant. I didn't even have to think about it. He was the most despicable person I had ever met. Sabrina saw the glare of hatred in my eyes and ended the conversation. When tea was over, I hovered by my room. Gabriel had already returned to his room, saying goodnight and giving me a kiss. But it didn't feel like enough. I wanted more of him. I wanted to be with him. Taking in a deep breath, I let my hand drop and glided towards Gabriel's room on the other end of the hall, standing outside of his door. Would he want me there? What was I asking? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. With that one thought in mind, I lifted my hand up and knocked on his door. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. There was no response. Patiently, I waited for Gabriel to answer, but as time passed, my confidence sizzled. Maybe he didn't want me to enter. He definitely would be able to smell me, so he knew it was me at the door. Disheartened, I turned my body, ready to return to my room when a hurried comment came from the other side. I swung the door opening, causing it to creak loudly. Gabriel's room was gigantic, especially in comparison to mine. His four-poster bed could fit at least 5 people comfortably. The objects in his room were plain and lacked any warmth or familiarity. The walls were painted a dull grey, which contrasted with the gold curtains. Then, I spotted him. He exited the bathroom with grace, his appearance haggard. Thankfully, he was wearing boxers, but his chest was bare once again. What are you doing here? Liberty, he wondered. I wanted to stay here tonight. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Bluntly, this seemed to please him. A glint shone brightly in his grey orbs, which were full of life compared to his walls. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He didn't need to say anything. Wordlessly, he handed me some of his clothes to sleep in. Even though I could have rushed to my room to grab some, I changed in the bathroom and brushed my teeth with his spare toothbrush. Did he know I'd come into his room one day? When I left his bathroom, I slowly stalked back into his room. He was already lying in bed, reading sheets of paper. No doubt packed business. I slipped into his incredibly soft bed, my body sinking into the mattress. His bed was like heaven and it smelled just like him. I knew I'd sleep well tonight. Gabriel switched the lights off and lay back. Several minutes of silence passed unbearably. Eventually, he made the first move and shifted closer to me. His bulky arm draped over my waist and tugged me towards him. Happily, I snuggled into his chest and breathed in his scent. This was where I was meant to be. 33 Edens passed the next morning. I woke up feeling refreshed and ready for the day. stretching and yawning. I tilted my head to the side and saw Gabriel sleeping peacefully still. His arm was still anchored over my waist as if he was protecting me. A content smile slipped onto my face at the sight of him. He looked so blissful, undisturbed by the stresses of the world. I wished he could stay like this forever. I managed to slide out of his grip and tiptoe to his bathroom where I relieved myself. By the time I returned, Gabriel was stirring, leaning against his doorframe. I greeted him in his clothing and a cheeky smile. "Hey, stranger." He sat up, his grey eyes immediately drinking me in. The look of desire in his eyes was evident. He might have just woken up, but that didn't stop him from wanting to devour me. "Liberty." He said my name in his rough voice. It was his morning voice, and boy, did it sound good. "How did you sleep?" Cocking my head to the side, I noticed how his eyes kept drifting up and down my body, lingering on my legs. I refrained from smiling. I think that was the best sleep I had ever had, he admitted, combing his dark hair back. It was the same for me. I don't think I had ever slept as well. "Good. I'm going to head down for breakfast. You should stay here and get some more sleep," I advised, frowning at the bag still under his eyes. "I don't need any more sleep." I shook my head, not taking no for an answer. "You might not need sleep, but you need rest. Spend your morning in bed." "Gabriel," he pinched his lips together. I don't think anyone has ever ordered him around like this before. "Fine," he relented, a mischievous gleam in his eyes. "But only if you stay with me." The invitation was tempting. I'd like nothing more than to curl up beside him and rest. "But I have matters to attend to." "Not today," I replied. "Sadly, I have to see Sabrina." Gabriel narrowed his eyes at me, probably annoyed I was ditching him for Sabrina. My heart fluttered knowing he wanted to be with me. "I'll see you later," I vowed, making my way over to him. Happily, I pecked his cheek before crashing my lips on his. He responded to my kiss immediately, gladly taking the lead. He sure knew how to kiss. I moaned into his mouth, shifting my weight onto him. And I hummed, my hands landing on his broad shoulders. My whole body came to life, making me wonder how I lived for so long without this joyous feeling. "Don't leave." His lips against my jawline. I felt shivers of pleasure run down my spine. I knew what he was doing, and boy, it was working. I didn't want to leave, I wanted to stay with him. "I'm sorry," I apologized, pulling myself away with great effort. I stepped back and had heard him exhale heavily. Without turning back, because I knew I would turn back if I saw him, I wandered out of the room and towards the dining room. I wanted to talk to Sabrina about Eden. Unfortunately, she wasn't there when I arrived. Sighing in exasperation, I made myself a bowl of cereal and sat at my usual table by the window. A few members of the pack waved at me. There seemed to be a change in their attitude towards me now that they knew who I was. Smiling back at everyone who acknowledged me, I enjoyed my breakfast. When I glanced up after finishing my breakfast, I spotted Sabrina bouncing into the dining room with a happy expression on her face. Gomez was nowhere in sight. He was probably training. She grabbed a cooked breakfast and sauntered over to me after I flagged her down. "Hey, Libby," she greeted me, joyously. "Sabrina." I nodded my head, cupping my mug. "I actually have something to discuss with you." She tilted her head, flickering her brown orbs up to me. "It's about Eden. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Gravely, Sabrina tensed, making me wonder what she knew about yesterday. "I don't know if anybody told you about yesterday." She loosened a breath. "No, actually." I saw her rushing to her room with tears running down her face. "I thought she was upset that you had been announced as the Luna. Did something else happen?" Relief coursed through me momentarily. I was glad word hadn't spread. I told her everything that happened, skipping over what Jacob told me yesterday. It was his secret. Sabrina listened to me intensely, her eyes swirling with pity. I wasn't sure if it was for me or not. When I was done, I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms, So that's everything. Sabrina pinched her lips together. By now, her food was forgotten and it had probably gotten cold. I felt a bit bad for letting that happen, but I needed to know what could be done. Eden was out of control, something needed to be done. I couldn't go on worrying if she was going to do something like this again. I already had enough on my plate. Gabriel was already filled with stress, so I couldn't go to him about this. Sabrina was the only person I could trust with this. She was kind and compassionate. Plus, she was close with Eden. Liberty, I think there is something you should know about Eden, Sabrina declared, licking her lips nervously. I didn't tell you this earlier because it wasn't my secret to tell, but I think you need to know this to fully understand Eden. Dread seized my heart. What was Sabrina going to tell me? Did I want to know? I had no choice but to listen. I'm sorry this happened to you. Libby. She's not been the same since her parents died. Sabrina started. Her face was grim. I figured that would be the case. Anybody would be affected by the death of their parents. I knew I'd never be the same if mine died. After losing her parents, she latched on to the first person she knew she could depend on. There was only one person who could protect her and wouldn't disappear. Gabriel, I whispered, conjuring up an image of Eden staring at Gabriel with love and longing in her eyes. Sabrina nodded her head solemnly, confirming it. He had lost his parents too, and she thought that he would open up to her since she was in the same boat as him. I'm not sure if she actually genuinely loved him in the beginning, but she needed him. He was the only person who could provide her with a sense of security and hope. She exhaled and dragged a hand down her face. Any traces of happiness that circled in her when she first waltzed in was gone now. This conversation had turned her mood sour. To add to that, her parents had always been close with Gabriel's. They truly believed Eden would be chosen as the Luna since she was strong and a friend. They knew Gabriel's dad wanted the next heir to be strong and from this pack. They made her the perfect candidate. She continued, shaking her head in disbelief and even anger. I hadn't heard this from anyone before. From what I knew, the pack had always wanted her to be the Luna. To hear that they molded her sickened me. Her parents drilled into her head that she had to be the perfect Luna. She had to be there for Gabriel to protect him, support him, and even love him. Even if he wasn't her mate, which became obvious the moment they both turned 18, she had to let any thoughts of her mate go. Gabriel had to choose her. If he didn't, she would be letting her parents down. Hearing this removed any lingering, angry thoughts. Eden had a tough time. She clearly needed help. They had a very brief relationship, only because Gabriel was respecting his father's wishes. But even when they were together, their relationship was wrong. Gabriel was never opened up to her. He was so distant. It hurt her a lot. When she was dating him, it solidified the idea of her becoming Luna. She made herself as possible. For a short time, she even became the Luna, even though Gabriel never announced her as his partner. Sabrina choked up, placing a shaky hand over her mouth. Her eyes glistened as she traveled to the past. Watching her shatter to her perfect expectations was awful. Thankfully, Gabriel saw what was happening to her and sent her away. He ended the relationship as delicately as he could, telling her he couldn't hurt her any longer. I could picture Gabriel doing this. Even though he didn't love her romantically, he definitely cared for her. She left for Laosien shortly after. Gabriel hoped she would find her mate and let go of him. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I thought about my beloved brother Jacob, who discovered they were mates. Did Eden know too? Or did she have a werewolf mate out there? Jacob would take care of her. He would love and cherish her. He was a good person. When she came back, she tried to show Gabriel she was better. She made moves on him, flirted with him, and showed him she was strong and capable of being his Luna. But you were there and he knew you were mates. If there was any chance of him being with her, it was gone the moment you arrived. Now I'm only saying this from what I've observed. I'm not sure if this is what she thought. I don't think Eden knew who you were to Gabriel, but she knew he only had eyes for you. He'd hide and deny it like he used to do, but she knew him well enough to know. I think she knew she lost him then. She knew he didn't want her like that. I could see the light slowing, dying in her eyes. She became unstable. Her one dependent person who she thought she had not only sent her away for a long time but also ditched her. Even though she had me and Blade, we weren't enough, not compared to Gabriel. Sabrina sniffled as a tear trailed down her flushed cheek. Everyone around us was going about with their daily business, having no clue what was happening. I tried to reason with her. I tried to explain that she still had her mate out there, and that Gabriel could not love her in that way. I didn't know about you, so I assumed he was incapable of loving anyone in that way. But that stubborn girl ignored me and let her heart get trampled on even more. She was crumbling. She was having some sort of breakdown that she couldn't control. I could remember the day we were training, the day she tried to seriously harm or even kill me. Her eyes were manic and unpredictable. Her heart was breaking. I knew she loved Gabriel, but I had no idea how important he was to her. I felt in the wrong. Realistically, I know I did nothing wrong. He wasn't meant for her. But still, it pained me to know how much my existence affected the troubled girl. Sabrina. I said her name softly, gently placing my hand over her trembling one. It sounds like Eden needs help. GT Sabrina bowed her head and mumbled. I know. I've been trying to get her to see a doctor, but she's too prideful. Hopefully, she'll now realize she needs help. I mashed my lips together. I don't think she should be here when Moon attacks. She's too unstable. It could set her off. Plus, seeing me and Gabriel won't help her heal. She needs to go somewhere isolated and get some real help. I know, Sabrina reluctantly admitted. Eden would never get better with me around. She'd never get over the anger. Is there any place she can go? Wanting to help Eden, it was the least I could do. Sabrina went silent, pondering over Eden's options. Wait, there is one place. It's on packed grounds, but it's on the edge. Opposite where Moon is. It's a healing facility. Humans can visit there too. The people that work there are not a part of our pack. Moon wouldn't attack it because of the humans. Sabrina babbled, speaking quickly. A smidge of hope coursed through me. That sounds like the perfect idea. Now we just have to get Eden to go there, I said, and immediately frowned. She'd never listen to me. Sabrina sent me a small smile as if she could read my thoughts. I'll talk to her. She'll listen to me. I threw her a grateful smile. We might have just solved one problem. Eden would get the help she desperately needed. Telling Jacob would be a problem, though. He'd be concerned for her safety. He might not even like the idea of letting her go for an unknown amount of time. I'd have to find a way to persuade him to let her go for a while. Flickering my eyes back to Sabrina's friendly brown ones, I knew we had made the right decision. Jacob could be mad at me about it, and I wouldn't even feel a tiny amount of guilt. I was helping him in the long run.